Good evening, everyone. Today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Indu Prakash Singh. Dr. Indu Prakash Singh is a wonderful poet, a brilliant author, and a feminist. He is also a human rights defender. As we know, today's topic for the talk show is patriarchy, feminism, and gender inequality. I would like to give you a brief upon it. Feminism is a belief that women should have equal rights and opportunities as men. Patriarchy is a social system that gives power and control to men rather than women, and gender inequality acknowledges that men and women are not equal, and gender affects an individual experience. I would now want Mr. Prakash to give a speech on the topic, followed by the question and answers.
Thank you, Rudru, for inviting me to talk on your program called Sahibat. First of all compliments and congratulations for starting this, talk. I must tell you that, see, for me, I've been actually a women's rights activist. I've been a women's defender for the last 40 years. And I took to, working on women's rights for the simple reason that one of my friend's sister was burned to death in the 80s during my final year of my graduation. And that is what something actually, made me really think as to why our society behaves the way it behaves and what is wrong with society. And so much of my research, my books and all that, the 4 books that I've written on women's issues, actually talks about the problems that we face, the country faces as such. My position is very clear that, there is a continuum of patriarchy, which starts with what I call femicidialization. And the other extreme end of this continuum of patriarchy is femistigmatization. That is, at one end, you idealize a woman, you say, oh, women are worshipped in a society. The phrases like, yatra naryastu pujyante ramyante tatra devata, where women are worshipped, that's where the divine, the gods reside. So at one end you say that, and second, at the extreme you normally would say, if any woman tries to challenge patriarchy, she's immediately dubbed as a woman of loose character, is immoral, and called a witch, called whatever. So the problem in our society is that both women and men, they are actually victims, or I would say survivors of patriarchy. So that's the reason why you find many a times that, I remember during the early days of my work on the women's issues and all, being part of the women's movement, there were many men who would say, hey, hello, you talk about women's oppression done by men. In fact, my first book is called Women's Oppression, Men Responsible. The earlier title was Man Does Not Stand Exonerated. For people to understand, the book title became Women's Oppression, Men Responsible. So for them it was that, listen, how can you talk about women being oppressed by men when women are themselves oppressing women, like the mother-in-law oppressing the daughter-in-law? And then at one time you think that, oh yeah, actually what they're saying is true. But being a student of sociology, we were taught about the debunking motive, that you have to debunk the surface reality. And when you debunk the surface reality, when you go deeper, you actually realize the structures of oppression of a society. And that's when, I started saying, and I think this is what friends also say, that actually is the patriarchy way which makes a woman an enemy of a woman. No woman is an enemy of a woman. And if man is an enemy of a woman, it is not as though there's a problem with the man, but it's a problem with the patriarchal nature of a society. So that's the reason why, be it our educational institutions, be it political, economic, legal, health, social, religious, whatever, you find the domination of patriarchy in all these institutions. Though we have got some very good laws now, but still the laws are there, but its implementation is laggard. It's not implemented. There are stringent laws against rape now, but convictions are zero. Convictions are rare. So the moment a woman goes to say that, well, I've been raped, the police would cast an aspersion on you. Madam, आप कहाँ थे? किस समय थे? आपने क्या पहना था? What about it? Now, what was a woman wearing? How has it got to do with the rape as such? So it's like anything that happens to a woman, our patriarchy teaches the society very clearly that you blame the victim or blame the survivor. So many times you come across these arguments that, listen, actually, women should not wear short clothes because it titillates men. What rubbish is this? Like, it's actually, like the loose character of men, which goes haywire, but looking at a woman who's wearing short dresses, this is criminal. Like, men try to justify their crime by blaming the women further, which is nasty, which is actually the gift of patriarchy to a society. And this gift is actually a bane, it's a harm, and which has turned our entire society till today, like, into criminal den. Like, why is it that men, I'm a man myself, like, to come to this level that I'm talking, it's not been easy. I've had to dissect my own thoughts. I had to challenge my own self. I had to challenge various theories. I was ridiculed by many men that, hey, listen, what are you talking women's issues? Yeah, come on. Women oppress men. What are you talking about, women being oppressed? So now, see, the thing is, until and unless we give up the ridicule to an issue which is so serious, I think we'll not be grappling with it. By the way, and then the other claim that people make is, oh, women's issues or feminism, it's a Western import. It's come from West. Now tell me one thing, Gargi, Matri, Meera and all were from India or from West? They were from the US or what? Huh? During the Vedic times, these women give up their property and all, and challenge their own men, the rishis, that, listen, even we want salvation, we want to have a religious practice, whatever. Now, so how is it, that, and then also, I think one important thing is, we all have been taught about Ramayana, right? I think everybody knows about the role of Sita. Now, you can imagine even the eminent people, say like Gandhi and Vivekananda and all, they have written that, Sita is a real ideal for any woman. Normally when we bless women, we say, Sita Bhava, be like Sita. But they forget that actually, when Ram went for Vanvas for 14 years, Sita followed him. All those things happens, right? But so Sita is very docile, very submissive, and they want every woman to be like that. But why don't we talk about that Sita, whom at the end Ram is calling, her sons Love and Kush are calling, the mother, come back, let's go. After the Ashwamedh Yagya, let's go back to Ayodhya, and we go back. And Sita refuses to come back. She asks the Mother Earth to swallow her. So Sita's protest is that so solid protest, but our patriarchal moorings that our society has will show that, oh, actually, Sita went into Mother Earth, Ram made a golden idol of her, and then he ruled Ayodhya and all that. So it's not as though we don't have, important, symbols of strong and powerful women. The thing is that the women are shown as weak, whereas traditionally they have been very, very strong, very powerful, and patriarchy actually infantilizes the woman. Patriarchy, in a way, actually, shows that, okay, women are somebody to be, kept distance from, So many religious texts will tell you that, maintain distance and all those things. Women are temptresses and all those things, So, I would say that, so all the practices that we have in society, whether it was child marriage, infanticide, female feticide, dowry, sexual abuses, sati, sexual harassment, the rape, the killings, the trafficking, sex work, Devadasi system and all that, is all a manifestation of patriarchy. And for that, I'm not blaming men or women. I'm blaming our patriarchal society. And fortunately or unfortunately, most of our religions, actually all our religions, are patriarchal in nature. Women are always shown on a negative side as such. So, I think I'll try to just, end it here. And
Okay, sir, we have some questions for you.
yeah.
So, being a feminist, what challenges do you face on your daily life? Like, you might have come across many cases, and you share some brutualities with us, which can, and how did you deal with them, basically?
See, I think challenges in the way that, I think when I was young, I had prepared my family that, listen, I'm not going to marry a girl from my own caste, you know. So I remember she's no more, my maternal grandmother would say, oh, okay. So you'll press her feet. I said, yes, I'll press her feet. You'll iron her clothes. I said, I'll iron her clothes. You'll wash her clothes. I said, yes, I'll wash her clothes. So it's like in your own family, I think there were people who were challenging you, your feminist principles and your, practices. So it's like, it is not as though you can be feminist for the world and you are, not feminist in your own family. I think it's like walking the talk. You need to practice what is preached, what is say. So I think when we are following a practice, let's be prepared to take up the cudgels at every sphere. We are not spared, by the way. Every time we are challenged, and so I think I never got daunted by any of the challenges, and I kept fighting till date. I fight on these issues, But I think and never we got flustered. Never I got flustered. Never I panicked. Because I had my arguments ready with me. I had my practices to buttress what I was saying. Yeah.
Sir, according to you, what punishment will be appropriate for the people who commit crimes like rape?
Yeah, see, I think for the rape that they commit and all, I think the punishment which is there, of about see, first of all, it's very important that they should get convicted, okay, and it should be a speedy trial. It should not languish for year after year after year, and it actually a trial where the woman is humiliated more than the man, and they'll ask the woman the act and all those things, how it was done and all that. So that's more important. Punishment, I would say, any time about say 7 years to 10 years to life, depending on the gravity of the punishment, gravity of the crime. I think I would say that should be the punishment for rape. But I'm against death penalty. Because I don't think so. Death penalty solves any issues, and however heinous the crime may be, I am against death penalty as such.
So, like for example, in some of the states, or maybe most of the people think that the best punishment for crimes like rape is cutting the genital part of the person. Leaving him just like that will be appropriate. But do you think that would stop an individual from committing further any rapes?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. Is kind of it's a retributive punishment format, but we follow the reformative punishment format. Where we try to reform the culprit or the criminal. So I don't think so, like cutting the penis off or whatever, is a good way. I would rather say that, well, I think, we should not take to that, but we need to see whoever the culprit is, we need to reform the person. And also, like, see, rape and all is made through movies and all as a crime that, as once a woman is raped, she's got no future. She's dead, and everything else is lost. So the more we keep adding this, this emotions and all those things to a crime, we actually, aggravate the problem. And so we need to deal with it as a normal crime, which surely is grotesque, which deserves punishment. And it deserves punishment, first of all, in speedy trial and immediate conviction, and seeing to it that this person, whether it is Swami Chinmayanand or, this, who was this person, who tried to escape and all, and finally was tried in Delhi as such, Kuldeep Singh Sengar. I think just because you're close to a chief minister of a state, you should not be absolved of your crime. Like Swami Chimayanand, his FIR has been removed, and the girl who was raped, she is languishing, who's a law student, is languishing in jail. So I think that should not happen. A crime is a crime, whether it's committed by chief minister's friends, whether it's committed by any person. It should be. I think the punishment should be deterrent enough. There should be no leeway. The problem in a country today is, I think, if you belong to a political party, and if the political party is ruling in the state or in the union, central government, then I think you can be absolved of the crime, which I think, is wrong, which is against the jurisprudence, against the criminal procedure code of the country also, which should not be done at all. We all are opposed to it.
In your speech, like you referred to transformation of a human, reforming that person who committed the crime. So could you lay out the basics of those reforms? Like how could you reform a person? How could you transform a person from bad to good? How is that even possible? That how could you change one's thinking if that basis are just laid upon from the childhood in that mind of the person who committed the crime?
Yeah, see, it's simple, of course, it sounds simple, but it's not that simple either. It's complicated. Like I know of a homeless youth, who had murdered, a bad character, like, a toughie who used to go around teasing girls and all those things. He had killed him, and he was lodged in Tihar jail. And after about his punishment, 6-7 years, of the punishment, he came out. We went and met him because he was a street child, and we knew him as a street child. And I worked with homeless people for the last 20 years. So when I asked him, "Bache, ye batao, what happened in the jail?" He said, "Sir, हमें काफी वहाँ पे training दिया गया. That they took us to lots of Vipassana and all that. I've done about 6-7 Vipassanas." And so what happened? Well, sir, I think after Vipassana and all, I think, I realized that I committed a mistake and I shouldn't have done that. Killing is not the answer. And I must tell you, this guy was reformed, So if a person who has murdered somebody, killed somebody, comes and tells you that, sir, actually I realized that I committed a mistake, I think that's reformation, right? There are procedures and processes to be followed in our, in our jails and all. If we do it properly, I think we would be able to reforming the person as such. So there are ways and means of doing it. It's not as though, tell you like the simple thing is anybody born a criminal? In fact, Khalil Gibran, the person who's written Prophet and other things, he's got a very nice line when he says, "Not a single leaf turns yellow without the silent knowledge of the tree." Which is, that if the leaf turns yellow, the tree knows about it. So if a person takes to crime, a society knows of it. Society needs to know of it, and society needs to work on it. So that's how I see that. But it's a good question. Thank you. Who is this, Rudra? Who is this person who has a question? What's her name? You should tell the names also. People asking questions.
Sorry, sir, let me introduce myself. I am Rishika Deshmukh, and I am in
Oh,
my bachelor's.
oh, lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot for this. I think it was a good question, and I think yeah.
So as you said, that rape is not end of the girl's life. But
Yes.
even if you see, if we get to know there's a rape victim around us, we see him with the eyes which makes him more uncomfortable. So, which is a more appealing way to tell the world that this is not wrong. She's been victim. She's not done a rape that we're looking at her like that, but she's been victimed. And how do we just appeal her in a more better way and make her just
See,
not give her sympathy,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
make
yeah.
her comfortable about herself?
Yeah, see, in fact, actually, in my, I think, very first book, I have got this case, where this person who has been a rape survivor, she goes around telling upfront that, listen, I survived rape, and how I survived rape is this, and it happened to me, but that's not the end of my life. I have to build my life, and today I am this successful woman. So I think somewhere, that bechargi, that, oh my God, this happened to her. I think we need to take out the entire shit. See, the thing is, the problem is we immediately, have this shame attached to a particular thing, and we throw the shame onto the woman, onto the victim or survivor that we call the person. The idea is that actually, in fact, we say, as we normally say, like, I think, it's like, hate the sin, not the sinner. And here is like you're blaming the victim and for this crime. So I think for us the problem gets pretty convoluted, that instead of supporting the woman, we start casting aspersions, looking slyly at her and saying, oh my God, okay, she was raped and, something must have been wrong with her. I think, see, I think uh, I must say clearly here that patriarchy is pathological. It's a sickness. Okay, so if our society is patriarchal, let us say that both the men and women are sick due to the influence of patriarchy. That is what makes us look at girls or at survivors in the sly way, or that, okay, oh God, thank God I'm saved. It happened to her, not to me, and okay, and then you try to ask her and try to show sympathy to her, where she's not asking you anything at all. So my thing would be that, I think be as natural, as casual with other person as such. You know, I have come across. Yeah, please.
Do you think that the Bollywood, our film industry, is contributing more to patriarchy because we come across things in short films? If I see that men are saying that काम करने तो दे रहे हैं और क्या करे, अपना घर sacrifice करके या अपना basically sacrificing their whole household work, काम करने तो दे रहे हैं. That's the arguments we come across. And
Yeah. See. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, you speak. I'll just
Yeah.
continue.
Okay. Yeah. See, Rudra. Definitely, the single most contributor to crimes against women and to the pathology of patriarchy is Bollywood. All these songs like Chitti Kalaiya, Guri Guri, all that, the songs that they do, and then that Badshah songs, kya Mere Tau Baitha Hai Jail Mein, and all that rubbish he sings, Now, they are actually sexually harassing a girl, and they say as though it's very normal to sexually harass a girl, which they call it eve teasing, which is actually sexual harassment. And in movies, it's always shown, there's a boy who's chasing a girl, is slapping her. I think there was one movie which came recently where this guy is pathological, is slapping her and says, I love you. I don't know which movies. I don't watch movies actually nowadays. I can't say much about it, so it's actually the contribution of Bollywood in a big way for this negative persona of a person, the bad characters, and also like the abuses that we have, Rudra. the abuses that we have in a society is all directed against women. You know, and this you also learn from your own movies as well as when you walk around on the streets of Delhi and other places, you find men spouting abuses against women. Okay, and where I would say some of us have had the habit of walking to this men and saying, "Hello, whom are you abusing? You're abusing somebody's sister, somebody's mother, no? And the same person must be abusing your mother and your sister." And then they say, "Oh, sorry, uncle, sorry. Because of my white mustaches and all that, they feel a bit ashamed." But it's very important to challenge the people as such, who talk like this. We should not let them go like that, So, as you said rightly, Bollywood is a problem. And I think the issue about, that, well, men say that, okay, I'm allowing you to do this, I'm allowing the freedom. Hello, who are you to allow? The Constitution of India allows a woman and a man to be equal. Constitution of India talks about Articles 14, 15, 19, 21, all that. We are equal by the Constitution of the country as such, by the various laws of the country as such. Yeah, that's it.
Any more questions, anyone?
Okay, so I think with this we should just come to the closing. Okay. What all I have to say is that men and women are very different in their biological processes and body structures. Even though we know that women bleed every month, their extremities get swollen, they suffer headaches and mood swings. Despite all these changes occur for a week or more, they've got 3 weeks of liberty until the next cycle. Despite all this, they're able to do all the house chores and manage their work. And they don't get paid for all the emotional investment they do in a family. Nobody takes an initiative to reduce their household work. The leftover food she eats,
Hello.
the eyes in public strip her down.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Harsh. I was just about the closing ceremony.
Okay. I wanted to ask a question if that's possible.
Yes, you ask Harsh.
Yes, sir. Recently, a food company, I guess Swiggy, has taken a decision of 10 days period leave. So there were mixed reactions of the activists. I guess Barkhada opposed the decision, and some people were for. What is your stand in on that issue?
See, I think I would say that, if companies are taking a stand and supporting women's issues, in terms of period leave and all that, 10 days off and all, I think, see, it's like, depending on how a woman faces it, at times for some people it's very painful, and I think if they want to take leave, fair enough, why not? There are problems as such with that, and if the companies are, seized of it and open to giving leave and all with pay, I don't see a problem in that at all. I think this is kind of a positive discrimination that the companies are taking, which I would say I appreciate it, because I think we need to be concerned about our women employees as well as men. And a woman should not be encumbered because of certain biological facts and all, which men may not be having. So I think it's a positive sign. It's not a sign of weakness at all. It's a sign that a company is respecting a woman for what she brings in, and if she has problems, I think the company respects it and gives a leave for that. Without charging, without deducting cuts in the salary and all that. I think it's a positive indication. People may like it, not like it, but for me, I think I'm okay with that. I don't see a problem in that.
Any more questions, anyone? Okay, so I'll do the closing ceremony once more, sir, because there was a question coming up.
Yeah. Sure.
I would like to conclude by saying that men and women are very different in their biological processes and body structure. Even though we know women bleed every month, their extremities get swollen, headaches and mood swings. Despite all these changes occur for a week or more, they've got 3 weeks of liberty until the next cycle. Despite all these, she's able to do all the house chores and manage her work. She does not get paid for the emotional investment she does in a family. The eyes in public strip her down. In spite of all these, people have the audacity to say that they've got an extra metro coach. Why don't they sit there? We don't have anything on marital rapes. And after all this, she still fights for her rights, from ban on acids to rape cases. She is not ready to give up. The world has tried enough to steal her dignity and freedom. With this, we come to the end of this talk show, episode 1, Sahi Baat. This is Rudra Deshmukh signing off.
Thank you.